Hey there, welcome. I'm Damien and I'm just another starving artist on the internet. For those that don't know, Manga Jiman is a manga competition organized by the Japanese embassy in London. It is open for anyone that lives in the United Kingdom. Sadly, if you don't live here, you cannot enter. There are 3 categories: under 14 yonkoma, over 14 yonkoma, and manga category. We're going to focus on the manga one because that's the one I participate in and the one I care about. To enter, you're supposed to make a manga between 6 to 8 pages based on the theme or topic that they chose that year. I have participated a total of 3 times: in 2018 with the topic home, in 2020 with the theme of technology, and lastly in 2023 with the weirdest theme that they've had up to this point, in my opinion, which is forward. Out of those 3 times, I was a shortlisted finalist in 2020 and 2023. In fact, the award ceremony for the 2023 edition was only a couple of months ago as of the recording and posting of this video. And if I'm completely honest, I'm a little bit salty about placing 10th. So I have gathered a list of the judges' full names and addresses so I can go, no. I'm kidding, it's a joke. YouTube, don't get mad. I didn't gather anyone's information because of my results on Manga Jiman. Anyway, I didn't win either time, but being shortlisted twice, I think that is good enough to give me some sort of credibility if I want to talk about manga making, right? I'll come back to that later in the video. With that said, Manga Jiman is a bit of a weird competition in the sense that they seem to value entries that push the boundaries of what can be considered manga and doing things that one will normally not find in a conventional manga. Those things seem to really get a lot of points with the judges. But at the same time, the judges seem to be impressed by some things that are so common in modern manga that I will personally think of them as cliché or overdone. I won't get into details with that because I don't want to critique the other finalists' work without their permission, especially when they all placed higher than me that year. And I want to clarify once again, this is not me dissing any of the other participants, their work, or the judges' decisions. This is purely an analytical observation. I try to make my work a bit more experimental in the way the story goes and the themes that are explored, but still being fully recognizable as a manga, or at least what we understand as manga in the Western world. In Japan, any comic is a manga, and they seem to follow that train of thought in this competition as well. Having my work look a little bit too much like a conventional manga may have affected the judges' opinions on my work, but I have more things I would like to mention that I could potentially improve for next time. First, I think an 8-page limit is too low for me. My biggest problem when it comes to this competition specifically is coming up with a story that can fit in 8 pages. I have no trouble coming up with ideas in general at all, but they're all massive concepts that will need way more than 8 pages to explore even the most bare bones aspects of it. Another problem that is kind of related to that one is that I like to take my time letting the story breathe and have the readers get absorbed and immersed in the environment. In other words, I like having big panels with very detailed backgrounds and very little dialogue and a lot of environmental exposition. Not everything is explained, which in terms of page economy, not very efficient at all. For a better idea on how I like to pace my stories, you can have a look at some of Tsutomu Nihe's, maybe Sakamoto Shinichi's work. I am, of course, nowhere near their level, but you get the idea. I have also been reading a book called The Filmmaker's Eye by Gustavo Mercado recently, so it's possible that some of my panels may look a little bit like film frames. Also, I'm used to working on manga the Japanese way. That is, it reads from right to left. So when I was doing the storyboard, I will constantly switch directions without realizing. I forgot to mention that for Manga Jiman, you have to draw your story from left to right, the English way. Well, I fixed all the weird direction changes in the final pages, but there was one that didn't translate quite well enough. Let me show you. Usually once the storyboard is finished, I just stop thinking and just draw. Any changes I do at this stage will normally require me to redraw and replan most of the storyboard, so it's not worth it. That is why I didn't realize that this panel here was not flipped around. Another reason why I didn't notice is because the panel just makes sense if the manga was read right to left. In the previous page, my main character is facing slightly this way. So the next panel, which is the panel we're talking about here, is just zooming in on the same expression. So it shouldn't make sense for him to be facing another way for the sake of continuity, clarity, and all that. And then you have the one thing that he's focusing on showing up in that same direction that he's facing. This looks better than if it was the other way around, but it doesn't read well from left to right. The solution would have been to flip this panel on the previous page and then flip this one. If only I noticed all this before I submitted it. And following on that note, talking about layouts, the final issue I found with my own entry was a bit my fault, not gonna lie, because I should have told the organizers about this so they could print it properly. When I do storyboards, I draw them as if I'm making an actual manga that will be read on paper. I'm really not a fan of vertical webcomics, if I'm completely honest, but that's a topic for another video. Anyway, when you're reading a real manga, you're seeing 2 pages at the same time. I wasn't going to do a double spread page because I know when the entries are printed, they are bound with the spiral thing. I have my printed entries here, let me show you, like this. So if I had a proper double spread page, it will just get broken. It will just get broken in the middle and it just doesn't look good. But I still planned for the first page to be on the left. I know, my mistake to assume that, because I didn't check how my previous entry from 2020 was printed, and I should have let them know. If you look at this one, the first page is on the wrong place. It may seem like a very small thing, but I'll show you why that's an issue. This page, page 5, was supposed to be on the left side, because when you're reading the 2 pages again before, you, as the reader, are supposed to be somewhat surprised by the revelation of what the character has done, which is to make all these graves for all these people, and he's the only one left in the settlement where he was. That's a very common technique used in manga. You build up to a reveal, and then do the reveal as you turn the page and see it for the first time. Well, it didn't really work because the first page was printed on the right side and I wanted it to be on the left, so the page turn reveal got messed up. On top of that, the last 2 pages were supposed to be seen at the same time, making a nice dichotomy between his younger self and his current self. But now we have this, and then you turn the page to just see the final page on its own. Now, being completely honest, these changes could have made the manga maybe 10% better, at best. I don't think any of these will have changed my final position in Manga Jiman. I will probably still be 10th place. Okay, but what did I get? What are the 10th place prizes? Actually nothing too amazing. All prizes are given to the Japanese embassy by the sponsors of the competition. I got some books and a t-shirt from Ponetmon that I'm going to show you now. I'll start with the t-shirts. And if you've watched at least 2 videos of mine where I show my face, you can clearly see that this is not the type of thing I wear. Okay, I don't remember the last time I wore color, let alone this striking yellow. It says Kotetsu Jigu, right? And it looks very similar to Massinger's set. I don't know if you guys know that one either. I'm going to assume this is another giant robot series by Go Nagai. And honestly, this is kind of hurting my eyes a little, just being in the general vicinity of it, because it's so bright. I'm seeing it on the camera and it just doesn't fully capture how bright this thing is. It's painful. Anyway, let's move on to the books. First, this tankobon or manga volume in the original Japanese language. I wonder if they specifically chose this because the Japanese embassy knows that I know Japanese. But yeah, this is Pono Ichisoku by Hagimoto. Pono Ichisoku Haru no Yume. So the Poe Clan Dream of Spring. I have only read Thomas no Shinso by Hagimoto. I wasn't a big fan. I was just not really the audience for that kind of manga. I'll give this one a try though, eventually. Actually, I would have liked to have this back in 2019 when I met Hagimoto in person, when she was giving a talk precisely at the Japanese embassy. So I could have asked her to sign it. Anyways, good stuff, I guess. I'll read it at some point. Next is this comic, which is an adaptation of an H.P. Lovecraft short story. I think it's Kyoki no Sanmyaku Deiya. It's the Mountains of Madness. I believe this is part of a larger collection adapting more Lovecraft stories, and it's drawn by an artist called Colbert. Never heard of them. I will look them up after I read this. Oh, and by the way, this is also in Japanese for some reason, as you can see in the title there. Here. I don't know why it is in Japanese. This was clearly not originally published in Japanese. This is a Western comic. Maybe I don't know if it's It looks French, but I don't think it's French. I don't know. I'll read it eventually and see what it's about. And lastly, these 2 hardcover editions of 2 different manga by Jiro Taniguchi. We have Furari and Azu in Winter. I have to admit, I'm not a massive fan of hardcover manga. It makes it a little bit uncomfortable to hold while reading, and I normally avoid buying manga in English as well. I just buy in Japanese because English editions sometimes take creative localization liberties that affect the original creative vision of the artist and writers as well. You know, the usual lost in translation stuff. So I prefer to read the original. These are really nice collector edition books though. I will read them and put them in my shelf if I can make room for them. Now let's go back to my manga because I still have a few things to say about it. During the award ceremony, I talked to some people who read my work and didn't fully understand what was going on. I don't like explaining every little thing that happens in my manga because I trust readers to either be able to connect the dots or assume things that I don't explore explicitly. I feel very bloody weird having to explain my own work, so bear with me for just a bit, please. I had the main character speaking to a voice recorder as if documenting his findings to have a little more explicit world building than I would normally have if I was allowed to have more pages. I don't explain what the monster on the second page is because it's not needed for the story. It is there just to teach you about the potential reason everyone has died, what it is and where it came from. That's up to the reader to speculate if they want to. And now this is the part that caused the most confusion with some readers. How can he know whether there are survivors or not? The way I see it, humans in every culture have funerary rituals. We don't just leave our dead to decompose anywhere. If anyone survived the encounter with this creature, they will have taken anybody's around to a place where they could properly rest for the rest of ever, right? Even if we assume that the creature feeds on humans, some people have been eaten, someone must have been there to deal the final blow, and their body wouldn't have been eaten because the creature is already dead. And if that's the case, then perhaps it is wise to move the corpses somewhere else so as to not attract more of these monsters. These are all different ways you can see it. The main character knows all this because he was the last survivor in his community in the past. Finding the body of someone that died holding a bottle reminded him who he once was. Being the last one, there's nobody to bury you. Even if you dig your own grave, it's nothing more than a symbolic gesture to give yourself a proper burial, because it's possible that you won't even die in the right place to fall into it. It's possible that the man he found dug a grave for himself, but death caught him at a different place with just alcohol as his sole companion. Like that, throwing the bottle into his grave and burying this unknown man becomes a metaphor for killing his previous self and deciding to move forward, which was the theme for this year. With all of this said, I'll leave a link in the description so you can check all of the other entries and let me know your thoughts about my work and this competition down in the comments, please. I would really like you to do that. My favorite entry, other than mine, of course, was Healed Wounds by Riot Meddor. I'm not sure how to pronounce your name, dude. I'm sorry. But yeah, really good work, especially considering how young this man is. I'm looking forward to whatever manga he makes next. This sounds like the video's ending now, but I have one more thing to say before wrapping up. You remember how I said earlier that being shortlisted twice, I guess it gives me some sort of authority in the comic making world, at least in the British scene. Let me believe it, okay? Yeah, thanks. I'll be starting a new series on this channel. It will not have a consistent schedule, like everything I do, of course, where I will be teaching you how to make manga. I will be using examples of my own work, as I am about to start working on some manga that I want to publish as well. And I can use that as well as pages from well-established manga that will be broken down and analyzed to figure out why they work, or maybe why they don't. I'll have a look at some how to make manga books as well. Like, for example, so I bought these 2 books. This is Araki Hirohiko no Manga Jutsu, Araki Hirohiko's Manga Techniques. This is the author of JoJo's Bizarre Adventures, so I'm gonna have a read through it and see what I can learn. This book, I didn't know it existed until I bought it a couple of weeks ago. Very interesting that they will release this. Kakitai o shinjiru. Shonen Jump ga doshite mo tsutaitai manga no kakikata. That's a bit of a complicated sentence to translate, as I believe what you want to draw. How to make manga that Shonen Jump will want to publish. Something like that. Not Don't quote me though. And also looking at Naoki Urasawa's no Manben videos. They're like documentaries where Urasawa Naoki goes into the studios of all the mangakas and he looks at how they work. So I'm gonna steal some stuff from there as well. I don't intend for this to be an instructional tutorial on how to draw or make manga itself, but rather I want to make you familiar with the myriad of possible tools you can use, how to use them, as well as how other authors have done things in the past, and use that information to inform your own work and your workflow. I will not teach you how to draw, I will teach you how to do manga. I don't know if that makes any sense to you. Also, as I make these videos, I will adapt them for print and make everything available as a book in the future. Far future, we're talking. Maybe. And that's all I had to say for now. I hope you found this video helpful. If only a little, please let me know in the comments if you what you think about this whole thing. Please give me any suggestions for things you want me to talk about in the future, because I'm running out of ideas. And like, subscribe, and do all the YouTube things that make the algorithm happy. If you like my work, you will find all my socials, Patreon, shop, everything. You know, I'm not the only dude on the internet. You guys know all the links down in the description. So yeah, keep drawing, keep getting better, and I'll see you next time.